Draconian invasion. Vanishes on arrival, Earth's humans defy all expectations. The massive Draconian warship, Emperor's Fist, broke through Earth's upper atmosphere, its obsidian hull reflecting sunlight in harsh, almost painful flashes. Admiral Tejo stood on the command deck, his scaled skin catching the light from the tactical displays surrounding him. He had conquered 17 star systems before this one, 17 worlds that had either surrendered immediately or been reduced to smoking ruins. "Prepare the first contact protocols," Tejo ordered, his voice carrying the confidence of a predator who had never known defeat. "And ready the planetary bombardment systems. Earth will be like all the others." Behind him, his second-in-command Sung-min tapped rapidly at the control panel. "Sir, something strange is happening. We're detecting unusual energy signatures across, the planet's surface." Tejo dismissed this with a wave of his clawed hand. "Primitive defensive measures. They always try something." The view screen flickered to life, and Tejo expected to see terrified human leaders begging for mercy. Instead, a calm-faced woman in a simple blue uniform appeared. Her expression wasn't one of fear or even concern. She looked almost pleased. "Greetings, Admiral Tejo of the Draconian Empire," she said, her voice steady. "I am Director Jiwoo of Earth's Unified Defense Council. We've been monitoring your approach for the past 3 weeks." Tejo felt his confidence waver slightly. Their intelligence had indicated Earth was barely space-capable, with no detection systems that could have spotted his fleet's approach. "How do you know my name?" Jiwoo smiled. "We've been aware of the Draconian Empire for quite some time. Your conquest of the Proxima system was particularly instructive." Around Tejo, his bridge crew exchanged uncomfortable glances. The conquest of Proxima had happened only 4 months ago, and it was impossible that lightspeed communications could have reached Earth already. "If you're aware of what happened at Proxima," Tejo said, recovering his composure, "then you understand the futility of resistance. Surrender your planet now, and we will establish a reasonable resource extraction quota." Jiwoo nodded as if considering a minor point in a business negotiation. "That won't be necessary, Admiral. We've actually prepared a welcome reception for your diplomatic team. We'd be honored if you would join us." The audacity of it stunned Tejo momentarily. He had arrived with over 300 warships, enough firepower to crack the planet's crust, and these humans were inviting him to a reception? "Sir," Sungmin whispered urgently from behind him, "our sensors have completed their scan of Earth's defenses and there's nothing. No orbital platforms, no planetary shield, no weapon systems of any kind." This made no sense. Either these humans were complete fools, or they knew something the Draconians didn't. "Your lack of defensive measures suggests either supreme confidence or supreme stupidity," Tejo said, allowing a hint of his sharp teeth to show. "Which is it, Director Jiwoo?" Jiwoo's smile didn't waver. "Perhaps you'd care to find out. We've transmitted coordinates for a suitable landing zone to your navigation system. Oh, and Admiral, we've taken the liberty of analyzing your fleet's weapon systems. Quite impressive, though rather conventional in design. The casual dismissal of the most powerful armada in known space was so outrageous that Tejo felt his anger rise. "You will regret your arrogance. Sungmin, target their largest population center. A demonstration is in order." "Yes, sir," Sungmin replied, though Tejo noticed the hesitation in his subordinate's voice. The main weapon of the Emperor's Fist powered up, gathering energy that could vaporize a city in seconds. The bridge crew waited for the familiar rush of power that always accompanied a planetary strike. Instead, the ship's lights dimmed momentarily, and the weapon's charging sequence abruptly terminated. "What happened?" Tejo demanded. Sungmin worked frantically at his console. "Unknown, sir, the energy. It's like it was absorbed somehow. I've never seen anything like it." On the view screen, Jiwoo was still watching them, her expression now tinged with what looked almost like pity. "Please don't try that again, Admiral. Your weapon systems are temporarily disabled, just a precaution until we establish proper diplomatic relations." Tejo slammed his fist down on his command chair. "This is impossible. Begin full tactical scan of the planet's surface and orbital position. Find their defense systems." As his crew rushed to comply, the ship's sensors suddenly detected something new, an object approaching rapidly from Earth. Incoming vessel, Sungmin announced. Small, only room for perhaps 2 or 3 humans. Defensive posture, Taeho ordered. Sir, Sungmin said, his voice now openly confused. I don't understand these readings. The vessel has no propulsion system that we can detect, yet it's matching our velocity perfectly. The small craft docked with the Emperor's fist without authorization, bypassing all security protocols as if they didn't exist. Minutes later, the bridge doors slid open and a single human woman walked in, completely unescorted. Hello, Admiral Taeho, said Dr. Yunji, her simple white uniform bearing no weapons or even identification. I'm Earth's diplomatic envoy. I believe we have much to discuss about the future of Draconian-human relations. The bridge fell silent as the tiny, unarmed human stood fearlessly among them, her presence somehow more terrifying than any weapon they had ever faced. Draconian invasion. Vanishes on arrival. Earth's humans defy all expectations. Taeho paced. The bridge of the Emperor's fist, his clawed feet clicking against the metal floor. 24 hours had passed since the failed weapons test, and his patience was wearing thin. The diplomatic envoy, Dr. Yunji, had left after delivering a proposal for formal talks, her calm demeanor somehow more unsettling than any threat. Want answers, Taeho snapped at his science officer, Do-hyun. How did they neutralize our main cannon? Do-hyun looked up from his console, dark circles under his eyes showing he hadn't slept. Sir, I've run every analysis possible. There was no counter-energy beam, no shield technology we can detect. It's as if the energy simply ceased to exist. That's not possible, Taeho growled. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. Unless... Do-hyun hesitated, clearly afraid to voice his theory. Speak, ordered Taeho. Unless... They're manipulating physical constants within localized fields, altering the fundamental rules of reality itself. The bridge fell silent. Such technology was theoretical at best, the stuff of scientific speculation, not practical application. Taeho's communication officer interrupted the uncomfortable silence. Admiral, we're receiving reports from the fleet. The Relentless Dawn has disappeared. Disappeared? A Draconian destroyer doesn't simply disappear. Taeho rushed to the tactical display. Sure enough, where the Relentless Dawn had been stationed at the edge of their formation, there was nothing. No debris, no energy signature, no distress call. The officer continued. It's as if it never existed. Before Taeho could respond, another alert sounded. Sir, the Eternal Flame is also gone. Over the next hour, 7 more ships vanished from their fleet without explanation. No explosions, no signs of combat, they simply ceased to be. Panic began to spread through the remaining vessels. All ships maintain formation, Taeho ordered over the fleet-wide channel. Prepare jump drives for immediate retreat. As the jump drive engineers worked frantically to plot an escape course, the main view screen activated without command. Do-hyun appeared, the same scientist they had met earlier, standing in what appeared to be some kind of control center deep below Earth's surface. Behind him, holographic displays showed every Draconian ship in perfect detail. Greetings again, Admiral, Do-hyun said pleasantly. I notice you're preparing your jump drives. Unfortunately, they won't function correctly within our system's dimensional boundary. Taeho fought to maintain his composure. What have you done with my ships? They're quite safe, Do-hyun assured him. Your crews as well. We simply relocated them to a more appropriate setting for initial cultural exchange. Relocated? How? Do-hyun smiled. Perhaps a demonstration would help you understand. He gestured to someone off-screen and suddenly the view changed to show a massive underground chamber. Inside, perfectly preserved as if in a museum exhibit, sat the Relentless Dawn and the other missing ships. You can't have moved them, Taeho stammered. Each vessel weighs millions of tons, and my crew are being treated well, Do-hyun finished for him. They're currently in orientation, learning about Earth and our history. Most are quite fascinated, especially by our music. Sungmin approached Taiho, speaking quietly. Sir, long-range scanners detect unusual energy patterns, forming around 3 more of our ships. Taiho turned back to the screen. Stop this immediately. This is an act of war. Do-hyun's expression became serious. With respect, Admiral, you arrived in our system with the intent to conquer or destroy our world. By any reasonable definition, you initiated hostilities. As if to punctuate his statement, alerts sounded as 3 more Draconian vessels vanished from formation. How are you doing this? Taiho demanded. As I mentioned during our first meeting, what you perceive as Earth is merely a 3-dimensional shadow of our true civilization, Do-hyun explained. Humanity mastered dimensional phase technology centuries ago. We exist partially in higher dimensions that your sensors cannot detect and your weapons cannot reach. Do-hyun gestured, and a holographic model appeared beside him, showing what looked like Earth but with strange geometric extensions that hurt Taiho's eyes to look at. Think of it as a book, Do-hyun continued. You see the cover and perhaps read the words on each page, but you cannot see all pages simultaneously. We, however, can perceive and interact with the entire book at once. Taiho stared at the display, his tactical mind racing to understand the implications. If humans could manipulate higher dimensions, they could appear and disappear at will, bypass any defense, render any weapon useless. Your ships aren't being destroyed, Do-hyun said gently. They're being bookmarked, for lack of a better term, placed temporarily outside normal space-time. As if to demonstrate, another Draconian vessel, the Imperial Talon, flickered and vanished from formation. Sungmin approached Taiho again, his voice shaking. Sir, at this rate we'll lose the entire fleet within hours. Taiho felt something he had never experienced in battle before. Helplessness. His mighty armada, the pride of the Draconian Empire, was being collected like specimens by beings whose technology he couldn't begin to comprehend. What do you want? Taiho finally asked, his voice low. The same thing we've wanted from the beginning, Do-hyun replied. Peaceful contact, cultural exchange, maybe even friendship eventually. You expect me to believe that after you've effectively captured half my fleet? We've caused no harm to a single Draconian, Do-hyun pointed out, which is more than can be said for your empire's usual first contact protocols. The accusation stung because it was true. Draconian conquest typically began with the destruction of military targets and population centers to demonstrate their overwhelming power. I'm sending a shuttle to bring you to our primary research facility, Do-hyun continued. There's something you need to see to truly understand who we are. As the communication ended, Taiho stared out the viewport at Earth, looking so deceptively ordinary and vulnerable below them. Yet somehow, this seemingly defenseless world was dismantling the most powerful fleet in known space without firing a single shot. Sir, Sungmin asked quietly, what are your orders? Taiho watched as another of his ships vanished into whatever higher dimension the humans controlled. Prepare my shuttle, he said finally. I will meet with them. Draconian invasion vanishes on arrival. Earth's humans defy all expectations. Taiho's shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, flanked by 2 small Earth vessels that seemed to glide through the air rather than fly. Through the viewport he watched as the blue of the sky deepened and then gave way to the greens and browns of the land below. They were heading toward what appeared to be an ordinary mountain range. This can't be right, he muttered to Sungmin, who sat rigidly beside him. Their main research facility would be heavily guarded, not hidden in wilderness. As if reading his thoughts, the pilot of one of the escort vessels spoke through the comm system. The mountains provide natural shielding for some of our more sensitive equipment, Admiral, and we find the surroundings quite beautiful. The casual way these humans discussed their technology, as if it were nothing special, only heightened Taiho's unease. In his experience, advanced technology was guarded jealously, used to dominate and control. Yet these humans seemed almost careless with their power. The shuttle touched down in a clearing, and when the doors opened, Taiho was struck by the scent of pine and fresh water, so different from the recycled air of spacecraft. Dr. Yunji stood waiting, wearing the same, simple white uniform as before, without visible weapons or even guards. "Welcome to Earth, Admiral," she said with a small bow. "I hope your journey was comfortable." Tae-ho ignored the pleasantry. "Where are my ships? My crews?" "They're safe," Yoonji assured him, "and you'll be able to see them shortly. But first, we have much to discuss." She gestured toward what appeared to be an ordinary rock face. As they approached, a section of it simply vanished, revealing a corridor that sloped gently downward. Inside, the facility defied Tae-ho's expectations. Instead of the sterile metal and harsh lighting he associated with military installations, the walls were made of some sort of warm, amber material that seemed to glow from within. Humans of various ages worked at stations that appeared to be grown rather than built, with displays that hung in the air without visible projectors. "What is this place?" Sungmin asked, his scientific curiosity momentarily overcoming his caution. "We call it the Nexus," Yoonji explained. "It's one of several hundred such facilities around our planet. This one specializes in interspecies relations and dimensional physics." She led them into a large, circular room where a group of humans stood around a holographic display of the solar system. One of them, an older man with kind eyes and gray-streaked hair, stepped forward. "Admiral Tae-ho, Commander Sungmin, welcome," he said. "I'm Professor Jin-ho, Earth's Chief of Xenosociology. I've been studying your species for some time." "Studying us?" Tae-ho's scales bristled slightly. "How?" Jin-ho gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show various Draconian worlds, including their homeworld, Drakkar Prime. "We've had observation posts in neighboring systems for centuries, non-intrusive, of course. We believe in learning about new species before making contact." The casual revelation that humans had been watching the Draconian Empire for centuries without ever being detected sent a chill down Tae-ho's spine. "If you've been observing us," Tae-ho said carefully, "then you know we don't respond well to threats. Removing our ships was a precaution, not a threat," Yoonji interjected gently. "Your empire has conquered 17 systems in the past 50 years. Each followed the same pattern: arrival, demonstration of force, subjugation. We simply removed the option of force from the equation." Another human approached, this one younger, with a tablet-like device that seemed to float between his hands. "Admiral, my name is Minho. I'm the liaison assigned to your crew members. They're adjusting well, though they have many questions." "I want to see them," Tae-ho demanded. Minho nodded. "Of course." He made a gesture, and one wall of the room became transparent, revealing a large, open space beyond. There, hundreds of Draconian soldiers mingled with humans. Some were engaged in conversation, others examining pieces of technology. A few even appeared to be playing some kind of game. Tae-ho stared in disbelief. His elite troops, trained to resist interrogation and fight to the death, were willingly interacting with their captors. "What have you done to them? Some form of mind control?" Jin-ho seemed genuinely shocked by the suggestion. "Absolutely not. We would never violate another being's mental autonomy. They're simply responding to being treated with respect and curiosity rather than as enemies." "I don't understand," Tae-ho admitted, his voice lower now. "If you have this power, the ability to neutralize our weapons, transport our ships at will, why didn't you simply destroy us when we entered your system? It would have been more efficient." The humans exchanged glances that Tae-ho couldn't interpret. Finally, Yoonji spoke. "That's not who we are, Admiral. Humanity evolved differently than many species we've encountered, where the natural path for most intelligent life is competition and dominance, as it was for your people. Our survival on Earth depended on cooperation and empathy." Jin-ho nodded. "Early in our development, humans were physically weak compared to other predators. We couldn't run the fastest or hit the hardest. What we could do was work together and solve problems. Those who cooperated survived. Those who didn't perished. Over thousands of generations, empathy became as fundamental to our nature as aggression is to yours. When we developed advanced technology," Yoonji continued, "we didn't use it to conquer or destroy. We used it to explore, to learn, and eventually to guide other species away from self-destruction. Tai-Ho's mind reeled at the implications. You're saying you've interfered with other civilizations before ours? Interfered isn't the word I'd choose, Jin-Ho said thoughtfully. We observe, and occasionally, when a species is on the brink of destroying itself or others, we nudge them toward a different path. Min-Ho stepped forward. The Draconian Empire was approaching such a juncture. Your resources are stretched thin across 17 systems, internal rebellions on 6 worlds, ecological collapse on 3 others, due to aggressive resource extraction. Without intervention, our models predicted complete imperial collapse within 20 years, with casualties in the billions. The accuracy of this assessment stunned Tai-Ho into silence. These were state secrets, known only to the highest levels of the Imperial Command. We're not conquerors, Admiral, Yunji said softly. We're preservationists. And now we'd like to offer the Draconian people a place in our network, not as subjects, but as partners. Tai-Ho looked again at his crew members beyond the transparent wall. They didn't appear to be prisoners at all. They looked interested, engaged, almost happy. What exactly are you proposing? He finally asked. Yunji smiled. Let us show you how the universe really works, Admiral. There's so much more to reality than conquest and submission. Perhaps it's time for the Draconian Empire to evolve. The first time since entering Earth's system, Tai-Ho felt something unexpected. Hope. Draconian invasion vanishes on arrival. Earth's humans defy all expectations. We're going deeper, Yunji explained, as the elevator platform descended silently. Through layers of Earth, Tai-Ho and Sung-Min stood in the center, watching the illuminated rock walls slide past. Neither had spoken much since their meeting with the human scientists. How far down are we going? Sung-Min finally asked, his scientific curiosity getting the better of him. About 8 kilometers, Yunji replied casually. The archive requires certain geological conditions. Tai-Ho's clawed hands tightened on the railing. This archive, what exactly is it? It's easier to show you than explain, Yunji said with a smile that somehow made Tai-Ho more nervous, not less. The elevator slowed and finally stopped, opening onto a vast cavern that took Tai-Ho's breath away. The space stretched farther than he could see, illuminated by a soft blue light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The ceiling arched hundreds of meters above them, covered in what looked like stars. No, not stars, Tai-Ho realized, but tiny points of light that moved in complex patterns. Welcome to the archive, said a new voice. A tall, slender human approached, his dark hair streaked with gray. I'm Curator Jun-Ho. I understand you have questions. Many, Tai-Ho admitted, still distracted by the immensity of the space around them. Along the walls and throughout the cavern stood countless crystalline structures, each glowing with its own inner light. Follow me, Jun-Ho said, leading them down a wide path. The archive was begun over 50,000 years ago, though back. Then, of course, we used more primitive methods of record-keeping. 50,000 years? Sung-Min repeated, disbelief evident in his voice. Your species hasn't existed that long. Our archaeological surveys of Earth clearly show human civilization emerging only about 10,000 years ago. Jun-Ho chuckled. What you discovered were the remains of our surface dwellings. After the last glacial maximum, what you might call the end of the last ice age, many of us returned to living above ground. But human civilization began long before that, deep underground where the ice couldn't reach us. They passed between 2 towering crystal columns, each easily 20 meters tall. Inside, Tai-Ho could make out shifting images, scenes from what appeared to be ancient Earth. We evolved differently than most intelligent species, Jun-Ho continued. Where others developed through competition and dominance, humans survived through cooperation. Our earliest ancestors weren't the strongest or fastest, but they worked together, shared resources, protected the vulnerable. Such traits would be selected against in natural evolution, Sung-Min objected. The weak drain resources. In the short term, perhaps, Jun-Ho acknowledged. But in the long term, Diversity of thought and mutual support created solutions that no individual could have developed alone. A broken leg wasn't a death sentence if your family cared for you while you healed. A new idea wasn't lost if others helped bring it to fruition. They stopped before a crystal that glowed with a deep, purple light. Inside, Tejo could see images of what appeared to be early humans, huddled around fires, sharing food, crafting tools together. These are memories, Junho explained. Preserved experiences from our ancestors, dating back more than 100,000 years. Impossible, Tejo whispered, but without conviction. After what he'd already seen of human capabilities, he was beginning to question what was truly impossible. Junho led them deeper into the archive, past countless more memory crystals. As our understanding of consciousness grew, we learned to preserve memories more completely. And as we encountered other intelligent species, we preserved their experiences too. They turned a corner and Tejo froze. Before them stood a section of crystals that glowed with a familiar reddish light. Inside, he could see images of Drakkar Prime, his homeworld, from thousands of years ago. Ancient Draconians in primitive armor, fighting over territory, conquering neighboring tribes. "You've been watching us that long?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "We've been watching everyone," Junho said simply. "Observing, learning, occasionally helping." "Helping how?" Sungmin asked. "Small interventions usually. A new idea here, a prevented disaster there. We try not to interfere directly with a species development, but sometimes—" Junho trailed off, then gestured toward another crystal. Inside, Tejo saw images of a Draconian city he recognized, the ancient capital of Vexcor, as it had been 500 years ago. A massive asteroid was approaching the planet. Then, mysteriously, it changed course, missing the planet entirely. "That was you?" Tejo whispered. Junho nodded. The impact would have caused an extinction-level event. The Draconian species would have been reduced to a few thousand individuals, likely falling back into pre-technological tribalism. We nudged the asteroid aside. "Why?" Tejo demanded. "If you knew what we would become, conquerors, destroyers of worlds, why save us?" Junho's expression grew thoughtful. "Because every intelligent species has potential. The path you've taken thus far isn't the only possible path. Look here." He led them to another set of crystals, these showing not memories but what appeared to be simulations. Tejo saw Draconians working alongside other species, building great structures in space, transforming barren worlds into gardens. "These are possibility threads," Junho explained. "Futures that might yet be if the right choices are made." They continued through the archive, passing sections devoted to dozens of other species. Some Tejo recognized, others completely unknown to him. Each had their memories preserved, their potential futures mapped. "How many species have you contacted?" Sungmin asked. "Directly?" "Only 17, including yours," Junho replied. "We're very selective about when we reveal ourselves. Most civilizations we simply observe, allowing them to find their own way, unless they face extinction or threaten others with the same." He led them to a central platform where a massive crystal pulsed with colors Tejo could barely comprehend. "This is the heart of the archive. It contains not just memories, but understanding, the collective wisdom of every species we've encountered." Junho placed his hand on a small pedestal. "With your permission, I'd like to share something with you both." Tejo hesitated, then nodded. Junho touched a control, and suddenly Tejo's mind was filled with everything. He saw the universe, not as a Draconian, but through countless eyes. He felt the joy of a child on a world he'd never visited, the wonder of a scientist discovering a fundamental truth, the peace of an elder passing knowledge to the next generation. Most powerfully, he experienced community, the profound connection between individuals working toward common goals, supporting each other, finding strength in diversity rather than conformity. When the vision faded, Tejo found himself on his knees, tears streaming down his face, an expression his species rarely showed. Beside him, Sungmin was similarly affected. That, Junho said gently, is humanity's greatest achievement. Not our technology, not our longevity, but our understanding that we are stronger together than apart. That cooperation, not domination, is the true path to advancement. Taeho rose slowly to his feet, his mind still reeling from what he'd experienced. All this time, he said quietly, we thought conquest was strength. Junho nodded sympathetically. It's a common evolutionary path, but there are others. Why show us this now? Sungmin asked. Why not earlier, before we conquered other worlds? Because you weren't ready to see, Yoonji said, joining them on the platform. A species must reach a certain point of development before they can truly understand what we offer. The Draconian Empire has reached that threshold. Taeho looked around at the vast archive, at the countless memories and possibilities preserved within it. For the first time in his life, he felt small, not in a frightening way, but in the humbling recognition of being part of something greater. What happens now? He asked. Yoonji smiled. Now, Admiral, we talk about the future, not just of humanity or Draconians, but of all intelligent life in our galaxy. Draconian invasion. Vanishes on arrival. Earth's humans defy all expectations. 3 months had passed since the Draconian fleet entered Earth's orbit. What began as an invasion had transformed into the most profound cultural exchange in the Empire's history. Admiral Taeho stood at the viewport of his command ship, the Emperor's Fist, watching Earth rotate slowly below. The blue planet no longer represented conquest, denied, but possibility realized. The last transport is ready, sir, Sungmin reported, approaching with a tablet displaying the day's schedule. 30 more officers will begin the integration program today. Taeho nodded, his scaled fingers tracing the outline of Earth on the viewport. And how are our previous participants adjusting? Better than expected, Sungmin replied, unable to hide his enthusiasm. Commander Yujin's engineering team has already begun implementing the atmospheric restoration protocols. On our simulation of Drakkar Prime, the results are impressive. Impressive was an understatement. The technology the humans had shared, freely without demand for payment or subjugation, could reverse centuries of environmental damage on Draconian worlds within decades rather than millennia. And the Imperial Council? Taeho asked, though he already knew the answer. Sungmin's expression tightened slightly, still demanding explanations. The Emperor has sent 3 more messages overnight requesting, or rather ordering, our immediate return. Of course they were. The Draconian Empire had built itself on conquest and control. The idea that their greatest fleet had not only failed to subjugate a new world but had apparently joined forces with it was incomprehensible to the old guard. The bridge doors slid open, and Dr. Yoonji entered, accompanied by Jinho. Over the past months, Taeho had come to respect these humans deeply, not for their incredible technology, but for their wisdom in how they used it. Good morning, Admiral, Yoonji said warmly. Ready for today's demonstration? Taeho inclined his head in greeting. My crew is curious what you meant by the full picture. They've already seen your dimensional phase technology, your memory crystals, your environmental engineering. Jinho smiled. Those are just tools, Admiral. Today we're going to show you what we've built with them. The journey took them not to Earth, but to a small nondescript vessel that Jinho explained would take them elsewhere. As they boarded, Taeho noticed there were no visible engines, no conventional controls, just a circular room with comfortable seating and walls that seemed to shift between opacity and transparency. Please be seated, Jinho suggested. The first transition can be disorienting. Taeho and his officers took their places. There was no sensation of movement, no engine vibration, just a brief moment when the air seemed to thicken, and then the walls cleared entirely. What Taeho saw stole his breath away. They were no longer near Earth. They hovered on the edge of a vast structure encircling a distant star, a complete Dyson sphere capturing the entire energy output of the sun. The engineering required for such a construction was beyond anything the Draconians had even theorized. This is Helios Station, Yunji explained. One of our older energy collection facilities, about 80 light-years from Earth. How? Sungmin began, his scientific mind struggling to process what he was seeing. How did we get here? The journey should have taken decades at our fastest speeds. Remember what we explained about dimensional phase technology? Jinho said gently. Distance as you understand it is flexible when you can move through higher dimensions. Before the Draconians could fully absorb this revelation, the view shifted again. Now they orbited what appeared to be a gas giant, but floating in its upper atmosphere were what looked like islands, massive habitats teeming with life. The Jovian colonies, Yunji continued, established about 12,000 years ago. The gas composition makes it ideal for certain forms of research. Again and again, the view changed. A massive space station at the galaxy's core studying the supermassive black hole, terraformed worlds around distant stars, structures that existed partially in dimensions Taiho couldn't perceive, appearing as ghostly geometries that hurt his eyes to look at. How many worlds have you settled? General Hyun-Ki asked, speaking for the first time since the journey began. Settled isn't quite the right concept, Jinho replied. We maintain research outposts on over 10,000 worlds, permanent habitations on perhaps 2,000. But Earth remains our home. Why? Taiho asked. With this technology, this reach, you could rule the galaxy. The humans exchanged that look Taiho had come to recognize, a mixture of patience and gentle amusement at such a draconian perspective. Ruling requires subjects, Admiral, Yunji said. We have no interest in subjects. We prefer partners, colleagues, friends. The view shifted one final time, and now they orbited a world that Taiho recognized immediately. Drakkar Prime, the Draconian homeworld. But not as it currently existed with its polluted atmosphere and depleted resources. This version of Drakkar Prime was vibrant, healthy, its famous red deserts blossoming with life, its oceans clear. This is a simulation, Jinho explained, of what your homeworld could become within a single generation, with our assistance, not as a conquered territory, but as a new member of what we call the Stellar Concordat. What would be required of us? General Hyun-Ki asked suspiciously. What tribute would we pay? Knowledge, Yunji said simply. Exchange of ideas, cultural artifacts, scientific discoveries. The Concordat functions on mutual enrichment, not extraction or domination. The vessel returned to normal space, now hovering above Earth once more. Through the transparent walls, Taiho could see his fleet, still partially dismantled, the ships being studied by human scientists with the eager participation of his own crew members. We're offering the Draconian people a choice, Jinho said. Continue on your current path of conquest and resource depletion, which our models show will lead to imperial collapse within 20 years. Or join us in building something greater than either of our civilizations could achieve alone. Taiho studied the humans carefully. Throughout his military career, he had become adept at detecting deception, at finding the hidden agenda behind diplomatic overtures. Yet these humans, with their almost unimaginable power, seemed to want nothing from the Draconians that the Draconians wouldn't freely give. The Emperor will never agree, General Hyun-Ki stated flatly. The Empire was built on strength, not cooperation. Perhaps, Yunji acknowledged, but empires rise and fall, species endure, and right now, Admiral Taiho, you have an opportunity to change the course of your species' future. Taiho moved to the center of the vessel, looking out at Earth below and his scattered fleet around it. 3 months ago, he had arrived here intent on conquest. Now he found himself contemplating something far more revolutionary. Peace. I'll need to address my people, he said finally. Not just my crew, but all Draconians. They need to understand what I've seen, what you're offering. Jinho nodded. We can arrange that. Our communication technology can reach every Draconian world simultaneously. And if the Emperor orders my arrest for treason? Taiho asked, the concern genuine. Yunji smiled. We've found that truth, plainly spoken, has a power of its own. Your people are intelligent, Admiral. Given all the facts, they may surprise you with their choices. As the vessel docked with the Emperor's fist, Taeho felt something he hadn't experienced since he was a hatchling. Hope mixed with uncertainty. The path ahead was unclear, dangerous even, but for the first time, he was fighting not to conquer but to build. There will be resistance, he warned the humans as they prepared to disembark. Not everyone will embrace change. There always is, Jinho agreed. Change is difficult for all thinking beings. But consider this, Admiral. Your ancestors once thought the stars were unreachable. Now your ships travel between them. The impossible becomes possible with time and understanding. Taeho looked at his officers, at Sungmin's intellectual curiosity, at General Hyun Ki's cautious optimism, at the others who had witnessed what he had witnessed. They had come to Earth as conquerors. They would return to Drakkar Prime as revolutionaries, carrying not weapons of destruction but ideas of transformation. Very well, he said, straightening to his full height. Let us begin. As Taeho prepared to address his fleet, he reflected on the irony of his mission. He had been sent to subjugate Earth and expand the Draconian Empire. Instead, he had discovered that true power lay not in domination but in connection, not in taking but in sharing. The greatest conquest, it seemed, was not of worlds, but of understanding.